Hello and welcome back to another Space Engineers mod showcase video. In today's video I'm looking at a modded weapon which is very fancy, but I do have to make a little disclaimer that it does use a new fancy weapon framework, but that framework is still in development, so there will be bugs here and there. But for today we're looking at the Octo Beam Laser, which is this lovely thing right here. It does exactly what it says on the tin, where it's a turret with 8 laser beams that shoot out and deal exceptionally well balanced damage. You got quite a few options on here. You can control it yourself, you can let it just shoot by itself, and yeah, I'll just start by going through them. So the turret itself is from your little spawn menu, so you have to actually add it to your mod list before you can spawn it in, as well as the weapon framework, which will also be in the description below. We get to this. This is the Octo Beam turret. It can be used on a small or a large grid. Requires 20 superconductor, 8 motors, 8 large steel tubes, 30 computers, 20 construction components, and 60 steel plate, which is not too bad for a turret. The only really worst part about this is those superconductors, so you won't be building this very early on in a survival game. So the cost done and out of the way, should we actually get in and show what this thing can do? So I've set up a little area over here where I put an octo turret on top of a large reactor, and I've got my little seat over here. Now the turret has been set up to target in a wide radius, so I will just to paste in, not that, a small little ship. Let's try the Dex fighter and shove it over here. There we go. And then we just give the Dex fighter to the space pirates. The turret will start to open fire and we'll blast it. So there we go, there is the beam, it shoots all A out, and we'll start blasting it. But as you can see, it's not doing too much damage. It's not completely annihilating it like the Atlas Super Laser or the other beam lasers I've showcased. It's very conservative with its damage, but it does pinpoint target the critical area. So as you can see, it just targeted my weakest spots, took out my cockpit, and I fell to the ground, and it stopped firing. So we can just come over to here and start salvaging up this vehicle if you needed to do so. It's a very neat thing to have. So if I just come and pop over here, let's go and talk through some of the options this turret has. So here is the beam turret, and we get a bunch of information on our bottom right. Oop, but okay, well, it just had to shoot it one last time. But anyway, we have here our damage per second. So we have optimal damage per second and current damage per second. The optimal is what we'll do, and the current is what we're actually doing. We then have below it our balancing part. Yes, this is how we're going to stop this from firing continuously and utterly destroying your enemies. We have heat generation, which is changed when you start to alter these settings right here. And then heat dispersion, which will basically be your cooling down period. Once your heat load reaches a certain percentage, the turret will stop and start to cool via this amount right here. And below that, we've got our power draw. So we've got our current draw, which is when we're firing it. We then have our required power to actually shoot it, and then we have the maximum required power, which is 32.8 megawatts. And we've got a large reactor on here, which is outputting 300. So coming down here, we've got our general settings at the top, so we can turn it on and off, show and terminal and all that. Then scrolling down to here, you then get some useful controls. Oh, well, it just wanted to shoot that Dex fighter even more, but there you go. You can see that it's heating up as it fires, and then it will start to dissipate once it stops. I'm not too sure why it's shooting again, but hey ho. So we can enable or disable the octo beam, so turning it off will just disable the actual beams, but it'll still aim and target whatever enemies are in the area. Then we can turn it on and it'll start blasting it. Below here we then got the change damage per shot. So if you watch up here the damage per second as I just drop this down, that's how much damage it's going to be dealing to the block. So we could just drop that all the way down and say let's have it there, where we'll have very low heat generation and we just will be able to fire for an exceptionally long time. If I put that all the way up to the maximum, we'll then heat up much faster, and then there we go. If you want to be a little bit more balanced, we can just drop ourselves below that 600 watts, which will be like that, which will then stop us from actually heating up. So there we are just very slowly dropping our heat. So we'll only be able to do 1750 damage per second, but we'll be able to shoot continuously while we have power. Then we have change rate of fire, which is just below there. So if you wanted to drop it, oh god, epilepsy warning, so let me just switch that off. If you have epilepsy or you're sensitive to flashing lights, please click off this video now. Alright, we're going to change the rate of fire and it's going to start flashing quite horrifically. But if I drop this down, as you can see, the current heat load is dropping and our heat generation is also dropping. So there we go, and our damage per second is dropping quite a lot. So if you wanted to have a sort of Gatling gun type of laser, you can do, or you can have a continuous one like that. But I'm just going to leave it like there just to save your eyes. Now, if I put the power all the way up, we have this fancy button down here called Overload Damage, where we will generate a lot more heat, but we also get a lot more damage. So clicking that, we then go up to 3,840 watts for our heat generated, and then we have a massive 5,760 damage. But as you can see there, the beam itself is cutting out because it's reaching critical heat and it needs to cool down. So we need to turn that off and switch off the laser in order to let it cool down in a respectable amount of time. So if I was just to say, let's just drop this down below our 600 megawatts. In fact, let's try and get as close as I can. That'll do. Then just switch that back on. It'll start shooting that little Dex fighter once again. Not too sure what it's doing. It could just be a visual bug. Like I said, the WeaponCore framework, which this turret uses, is still in development. So coming into first person, we can drag this onto a flight seat control bar. So dragging it down to here, we get a few options. We can have it shoot once or shoot on and off. Shoot once will not work because we are a beam weapon and it just doesn't seem to do anything. We then have use conveyor system, which we don't need to do because this doesn't use ammunition, it's purely power based. We can then toggle the beam on and off. Then we have the shoot beam on and off, where we can do that and just switch it off. Or not. And then we can come down to here, we've got activate mouse shoot, which will change it. So if I press this, it'll stop firing until I press my left mouse button, which will allow it to shoot. And there's a little bit of information you can see at the top of my screen, and you can see a targeting circle. I believe that is because of the framework. I'm not too sure because this is the first time I've actually used it and haven't looked too much into it. I was just more interested in the turret, but we can see there it's classified the Dex Fighter as a scout class, and it's got a few little bits and bobs on there, and we can see that it's trying to target it in that little blue and red circle. So there we go, we now got mouse shoot, then I'm going to press that once again and it'll go back to automatic firing. We then increase the damage, increase rate of fire and decrease them, overload on and off if you need to do so, and that is that. So we've got a few options we can do. We can't control it via this, it has the option missing. So you do, if you want to come in and control it, is to come to here, scroll down and control it, which will allow us to shoot the beam, bar, mouse and control it. It is exceptionally sensitive, just moving my mouse like 5 millimeters, it's going to turn you like that, but we can shoot it. There we go, there's its damage. For us to stop this and just come into here, let's just come into here and just overload its power. I'll show you some of the destruction it can do. So putting that all the way up, then taking control. We're now going to shoot this little Dex fighter. And we do a lot of damage to those blocks. We're going to tear through that really quickly. In fact, let's shoot that turret there. And there we go. That is with the overload on. If I was just to hop out of here and then just spawn in a new little turret, we'll then shoot it without the overload on with a more reasonable setting. Coming over to here, over to there. Let's just go and take control of our turret. We want to turn off the overload. We want to decrease the power all the way down. I'm not going to decrease the rate of fire because, yeah, epilepsy warning and all that. So there we go. We're now on the lowest possible. We can take control of the turret and we're going to aim at this over there. We're going to shoot it. It's going to take much longer to destroy that turret compared to being overloaded and at maximum. The only advantage to this is that we can fire forever as long as we've got power. Now what I'm going to do is basically set up a small little array. So I'm just going to put some large reactors across here, going to put a bunch of turrets on there, then I'm going to give it to the pirates. I'm just going to make sure that I'm not targetable, yep. Then I'm going to spawn in a ship and we're going to fly over them. So I've just set everything up again. There was a small little area with a crippling frame rate performance, which I just go and resolve. We are a little bit iffy right now, but we should be fine. We're just going to fly in for our Dex fighter, and we're going to see how well this goes. So here we go. We're just going to go up here. We know that the turrets are over there. I've set them to a more reasonable range of 1,200, and we're just going to fly over them. So the beams themselves are going to start targeting me, but as you can see, we're not really taking too much damage. Now there's 4 turrets there that are targeting me. There's plenty of time for me to get out of here and away with my life. The ship itself may not be so lucky. As you can see, we are being targeted in our thrusters first, which is completely disabling us. And then it's going to start going for the cockpit or the power, whichever it decides is the priority. But we are slowly going towards the ground. There we go. I can just hop out of here and I would be safe. But if I wanted to spawn in something a little bit bigger, ooh, I can do. So I'm just going to come over to here and find myself a little bit of a bigger ship. And then that'll be it. There's not too much else to talk about. It's just a lovely little turret for you to play around with. Although it does seem like 4 turrets is a little bit too much for this game, or at least my computer to handle. We're just going to come around and, ooh, what is a good atmospheric ship? Got the Hellhasts. Oh, that could probably work. I don't know if this had mods or not. Ah, yes, it even has decoys on it. So we're just going to spawn this in and see how well this goes. We're just going to drop this there. We've got a nice lot of hydrogen on there. We should be able to just head on inside the ship. I can't remember where the actual access point was. I believe it was underneath. No, it wasn't. There was a doorway somewhere around here. There it is. Come around here, sneaky little doorway, and there is the cockpit. So I'm just going to start like this. We're going to get a nice lot of speed. Atmospheric thrusters are now turned on. And let's see how well this goes. So when the turrets start firing, we are hitting a rather nasty frame rate performance, which is why I think maybe 1 turret at most is going to be useful. But we're just flying around here. It's trying to target my thrusters. It's also trying to target my power generation. That's not going to stop us. We can just fly around this area. There is nothing those turrets can do to us unless they overcharge themselves, in which they're only going to get a couple of seconds of good damage. Now, one thing I will point out that I've just noticed, they're not targeting the decoys, are they? They're going straight for those thrusters, not the decoys. So that is something that is rather interesting. I do know these turrets do work with the shield mod, and they've been incorporated to all that. And I think it's trying to go for my hydrogen tank. Anyway, that is it for the Octo Beam turret. It'll be in the description below if you wish to play around with it yourself. I highly recommend you do, because it looks like it could be a lot of fun. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with another video some point soon. Bye bye.